So friends, I will be leading today's sit and as well tomorrow. So thanks for bearing with me. I want to thank you, so many of you, for participating in our Shofar project this past Elul last month. And as you know, that project focused this year on Shemitah as we've entered into a sabbatical year, a year of release, of letting go. And we will be coming back to the motif repeatedly during our meditations this year. And in fact, all our IJS offerings this year will be informed by the reality that this is a year in which we are commanded to release our control and our instinct to manipulate our planet and our fellow human beings, and to let those go and remember that the source of all is in the one who creates everything. So I'd like to continue in that vein and also invite us to be mindful of the Shofar Bless, which either hopefully you heard at the end of each sit during the month of Elul, or the Shofar Blast that you heard if you were part of a community on Rosh Hashanah. It is traditional for the shofar to be sounded 100 times over Rosh Hashanah. And then, of course, we move from that into Yom Kippur, a day when the shofar is not sounded, except at the very end, except at the end of Ne'ilah, when there is one Tekiah Gedolah to usher us into the end of into a new year and to mark the end of 10 days of turning, Aseret Yemei Tshuva. So we begin, as one might say, with a bang, with a lot of sound, with the sound of the shofar ringing in our ears. And then we move into Yom Kippur, which the Torah describes as Shabbat Shabbaton, a Sabbath of Sabbaths. So in this case, in this year, it's a Sabbath of Sabbaths in a year of Shabbat. So it's a very deep day of letting go as we move towards Yom Kippur, a day of really settling down and receiving and opening our hands and opening our hearts and softening ourselves to be able to let go instead of clenching and grasping and pursuing the illusion of control, possession, and ownership. So for today's sit, I'd like to invite us to attune ourselves, since we're not going to hear a shofar today, but to notice the sound in wherever you're sitting today, wherever you're practicing today, to notice the ambient sound, whether it's in your room, or the room where you're sitting or standing or walking, whether it's outside your window, and imagine that as the vibrations around you, as the residue of the sound of the shofar. That is the external vibrations. And at the same time, to bring our awareness to vibrations taking place within us, vibrations taking place in our bodies, just through the sensations internally in the body, through whatever extent to which you can perceive your pulse, you can perceive your heart pumping blood throughout your circulatory system, to whatever extent you can experience your nervous system in action and feel temperature and notice messages going back and forth between your brain and your limbs and different parts of your body. Your ability to perceive a sense of comfort or discomfort in your body. And to attune ourselves, if those of you who participated in that mindfulness service may have picked up on this, and if not, that's fine. What we want to try to do is feel for the resonance between the external vibrations, that is the sound of the shofar that exists not just when the shofar is sounded, but is always reverberating in our world, and the kol damama daka, the still small voice that is heard internally within us, within every human being. In Untitled Chapter, which is, of course, one of the famous liturgical passages of the High Holiday prayer book, the Machzor, it is said, V'shofar gadol itaka, the great shofar is sounded, v'kol damama yishama, and a still small voice is heard. It's just one of those beautiful poetic passages. The great shofar is sounded, and a still small voice is heard. We might suppose that this is true not just on these Yamim Noraim, but really at all times in every moment, that a great shofar is being sounded, and that a still small voice is heard. And by stilling ourselves, we can, number one, attune ourselves to the reality of the kol damama daka taking place within us, the instinct to make manifest something that is trying to be expressed through us and through each of us in its own unique way, because every human being is absolutely unique. Every human being, every one of us, no one exactly like us ever existed, and no one exactly like us ever will exist again. That's really quite remarkable when you think about it. There is a unique voice that is trying to be expressed through us. And at the same time, there's a voice that's being expressed on a cosmic level as well. So today, what I'd like to do is invite us to just settle into attuning ourselves and feeling for the resonance between the external vibrations and the internal vibrations, experiencing ourselves as an instrument in, you might say, a cosmic choir or a cosmic orchestra, that we all have a voice and we all have a role to play, a unique and precious role to play, none more important than the other. Each, just like any instrument in the orchestra, the whole orchestra would be diminished if any one instrument was removed from it. Every single person has a unique role to play in this cosmic orchestra. But we need to attune ourselves to our role. We need to attune ourselves and listen for the resonance and the harmony that is present between what is happening around us and beyond us and what is happening within us at the same time. And if we can do that, we can really sit and, in fact, kol damama daka yishama, this still small voice might be heard. This is a good practice, I think, throughout these 10 days of awe, and whatever your practice might be, on the day of Yom Kippur itself, there will be an opportunity to perhaps even deepen that practice by engaging in a 25-hour personal retreat, hopefully as part of a community, but if not, as an individual, 25 hours of Shabbat Shabbaton, of really letting go, of doing, of being productive, of creating, of just being in the world. Just being. We don't have to create a sound. We have to be still enough to allow the sound and the voice, the kol damama daka, to be heard through us. So we'll have an extended time to sit today. I'd like to invite you to find a position that feels comfortable for you right now. It doesn't have to be your ordinary position. You can just take a moment to say, in what position would I like to practice today? What would be a position where I would feel comfortable, supported, alert, feel dignified, feel honorable and honored. And if it's helpful to close your eyes to minimize distraction, or to just let your eyes go into a soft focus, or to choose a focal point. If you like to keep your eyes open, just to choose a focal point in the room where you're sitting. You might decide it'd be more helpful to turn away from the screen, turn your body away from the screen. It really doesn't matter, because what we are striving to do here is just bring our awareness inward. In this meditation, we're going to try to, first of all, attune ourselves to the vibrations within us, and then see if we can see how they meet the vibrations around us and beyond us. If you're comfortable placing the soles of your feet on the floor or on the ground, rooting yourself there. Maybe pressing the crown of your head towards the ceiling or the sky or the heavens. Letting your hands rest in your lap, face up or face down. Might be resting on your thighs. We're listening for the call to Mama Daka. Still, small voice within each of us. Imagining that we are instruments being string instruments being plucked or wind instruments being blown, producing vibration. You might notice it in any tingling in the body. You might notice it in any restlessness, instinct to move or shift or adjust our position. We might notice that vibration as synapses fire and produce thoughts, discrete thoughts that float up from the well of the mind, come up to the surface, and then dissipate. We might notice it as our perceived emotions, the feelings that we're having right now, shift and flow and emerge and change. Just notice a dynamic inside us. It's a lot of action. It's not static. There's an aliveness. Expansion of the rib cage as we breathe and receive the breath. Expansion of the belly. Natural contraction of the belly and the diaphragm and the lungs as breath is released. And then see if you can be still enough to notice your heartbeat, your pulse, the rhythm of your instrument. It's hard for you to perceive the pulse or the heartbeat. You can place your hand over your heart or on your wrist or at your temples and feel for your pulse. Just take your pulse right now. Feel the aliveness. You are a clay kodesh. You are holy instruments playing in the orchestra. And if you have been able to notice vibrations, a voice that is trying to express itself through your body and through your mind and through your emotions, see if you can hold on to the Kol Damama Daka and at the same time attune yourself to the sounds and vibrations around you in the world alive, whether it's nature, whether it's the trees around you, whether it's birds, whether it's airplanes going through the sky, whether it's traffic or honking. Feel for the resonance, the intersection of your inner voice and the voice beyond us. And let's just sit in silence for the next 7 minutes or so in our orchestra together. As we move to the close of our sit, with the eyes still closed or gaze still softened, maybe bringing a little smile to the face. Experience the pleasure, the joy of being part of this orchestra while we're here. To experience the chiyut, the life force that is animating our bodies and minds and our souls right now as part of this larger flow of the life force, and the blessing of playing our own unique role, our own essential role in the unfolding symphony. Living in the field of vibration. And gradually opening eyes and focusing, coming back to the group and acknowledging each other, silently thanking everyone here for making this possible. The gift of being still for even a few moments over the course of our day, which can be so sustaining and as an essential part of the transformation that these Yamim Noraim strive to help us towards. And we seal our practice, as we always do, by making space for those who are in mourning, observing yard sites, to recite Kaddish, and invite those of you who are doing so, if you'd like to add the name or names of those who you're remembering today in the chat box. And for the rest of us to remain present, to honor the vibrations of the residual vibrations of those who have passed from this world, and to experience their impact on us, whether we knew them or not, to support those of us who are mourning, who I invite to join me in rising in body or in spirit for Kaddish. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbi v'yalma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei v'chaye chon v'yomei chon v'chaye d'chol Beit Yisrael ba'agala v'zman kariv v'yu amen. Yehei Shmei Rabba Barach Lam Lamed Almaya Yitbarach Yishtabach Ba'ar B'Yitramam V'Yitnaseh Yitzagar Yitalev Yitalam La'ela Mikol Berachah B'Shirata V'Hata V'Nekamat Yishram Ba'ala
Shlama Rabba
Yehei Rabba
Ve'im Avinu Kol Israel Guru Amen Aseh Shalom
Shalom V'Ramav Yisrael
Alenu
Alenu
Israel
V'Yisrael Cultivate Kol.
Amen.
Amen.
And friends, thank you so much for joining us today. Do want to remind everyone about our recovery-oriented mindfulness sit for tomorrow. I'll be leading that one as well. We'll be focusing on one of the themes of the high holidays, which is to essentially to turn our will and our lives over to God, to as we do physically and prostrating ourselves during the great Aleinu. One of the principles of the days of awe is to let go of our will, let go of our desire to control, of course, in keeping with Shemitah. We'll be exploring that practice tomorrow, and we hope you can join us. For those who are leaving, have a good, safe rest of your day. And if we don't see you tomorrow, wish you a Shabbat Shalom and a Chatima Tova. May everyone here and your loved ones in this world be sealed for a good and a healthy, a better peaceful, a year of healing for the earth and for human society in the year ahead, in this year, 5782. I'm happy to stay on and respond to questions and comments in the chat box. As always, want to thank our anonymous sponsor for supporting our practice today in honor of this year of Shemitah and this community. Thank you so much. And thanks, of course, most of all to those of you who are here making this community of practice possible. So I will stay on. If you have a question, comment, observation, anything that we came up today in your practice, please put it in the chat box and I will try to be responsive. Let's see. Okay.
The chat is currently experiencing some technical difficulties, so if you have a question, please send it directly to Marc or myself.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Adi. Okay, so question from Laura. Always great questions from you, Laura. Help us learn how to differentiate between one's still small voice that resonates and connects with the external vibrations, as opposed to the voice that is simply that of one's own reflections. Well, I will try. This is always the question. And I think what it boils down to, what we're talking about here, it boils down to the kol damamad dakav, the still small voice, is as best we can perceive as human beings who are not God, our perception of what is true as it emerges through our own experience that is impacted as little as possible by our ego. I mean, I understand, Laura, your question is, how do we know that we're not just expressing our ego or self-centered? How do we not mistake that for a sacred voice that's coming through us? And I don't know that we ever can tell for sure. I think sometimes we can tell. I can often tell when my own ego-driven needs are informing what's flowing through me. And I can tell when I am letting go of that and allowing something to arise within me and be expressed through me. There's obviously a spectrum. And sometimes I can feel like I am clearing myself out to enable that kol damamad dakav to be expressed through me. I'm no musician, but I guess it's the difference between, playing the instrument and allowing the instrument to be played through me in some way. And I don't know, I'd be interested what all of you have to say about that. And whether my sense is that I can discern to some extent when I'm closer to being a vessel through which it's expressed, and when I am an ego trying to get my way or say what I think for the sake of, for example, being right or feeling superior or something like that. So it's a discernment, I think this practice of sitting and letting go of the ego, of stilling ourselves, of shifting into a mode of being receptive rather than projecting, at least for me, is helpful. And as we say, you have to test it out in your own experience. Let's see. How do I feel pressure not to produce when I have work and deadlines between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur? Oh boy. Well, here's the thing. We have a Shabbat that happens once a week. We have a sabbatical year that happens 1 year in every 7. So there is a balance. We're not just always being, we are doing. In fact, 6/7 of the time, we are supposed to be in production mode, creative mode. So I think here the challenge and opportunity is to not shift back and forth between the running, producing, and the sit and rest mode, but to try to infuse, as we are being productive, with some of this Shabbat mode. And it can be as simple as just remembering to build in a pause, to build in a breath. My friend and our teacher, Sam Feinsmith, sets a timer that sets off that sounds a bell at a certain interval over the course of the day. So even while he's working and immersed in producing, there's a constant reminder to take a breath, to pause, to shift back into that Shabbat mode or Shemitah mode, and then to bring that in, to infuse the rest of our day. That's my interpretation of how I like to think about the spices at the end of Shabbat, Havdalah, this kind of infusion of the sweetness of Shabbat into the rest of the week. And it's also the idea of our daily set, really. It's not just to sit down for half an hour and put on the oxygen mask and then get back into the race, but actually to take a pause that enables us to integrate and bring that pause into the rest of our day. And hopefully that might alleviate some of the stress and pressure in doing that. I will put the link. Some folks are asking for the link to the B'nai Jeshurun mindfulness service. I will put that in. If you do, oops, sorry. There you go. Should not be hard to find that bell. If you look online and look for a mindfulness bell, you can find that. But also, you can always just set a timer if you have a phone with a chime. I just when I'm in a meeting with Sam or on the phone with him, and I hear that ding, I always think, oh, I should do that too. What a great practice. Okay, let's see. Lori, in seeking resonance and balance between inner and external voices, my tendency is to try to match to the external rhythm, such as when we match the breathing of whoever we sleep beside. How do we avoid matching and instead allow the unmatched internal and external rhythms to be okay and harmonious? Fantastic question. I hadn't really thought about that in terms of matching. So that's a great next question, right? First of all, if we can perceive this inner rhythm, this inner voice, the vibrations within, and perceive the external vibrations, what if do we feel that they should harmonize in our understanding, or can we just let them be however they are? It may be that maybe there are times when it feels dissonant and we learn to be okay with that. Or maybe there might be times when we learn to attune to what's going on externally, and maybe we're a little bit out of the beat, ourselves. I don't have an answer here, as you can tell. I guess I'm suggesting, as I think about it, maybe we can keep an open mind on that question. And maybe that there are times when it is wise to try to attune our instrument to what's happening around us. And maybe there are times when we are marching to the beat of our own drummer, and that's the way it needs to be, and that's okay. So I'm giving a less than direct answer on that. Just looking to see if other questions. My still small voice is always much more quiet and less insistent than my ego voice. That's really, thanks for that comment. Yeah, I think there are certainly times when it's very clear that my still small voice, what I think of as my still small voice, is not the still small voice. It's my still small. It's my voice, and sometimes not so still or quiet. And I can tell what it is. And then that's a reminder to just listen, just perceive, just allow the shofar to be blown through me. When I remember, which is not always by a long shot, whenever I teach, whenever I speak, I know I try to take a moment beforehand to pause and to say something akin to the words that we say at the beginning of the Amidah, Adonai svatai tiftach ufi yagita tehilatecha. God, open my lips and my mouth may declare your praise. I don't necessarily use that phrase. Sometimes maybe I do. But the impact, I think the intent of those words is a prayer to be able to be a vessel through which God's voice, as it were, can flow, to do our best to allow ourselves to be vehicles or conduits for holiness in the world through words and actions. Yeah, thank you, Leah. Someone wrote that one way it works is for ask God to help me hear the still small voice. If we can't hear it, we can ask for help. Being vulnerable, admitting our limitations, letting go of control, being willing to say, I don't know, is literally a way of hollowing ourselves out. And as you can see, that is a Shemitah kind of practice, to let go of knowing and to admit not knowing, to be open and receptive, and to trust that the right words, the right actions will arise, will surface of their own accord in some way. So let us leave it there for today, friends. I'm looking forward to seeing you tomorrow as well at the usual time. Again, if you do know people who are in recovery, or if you have know people who are family members or friends who are in recovery who you think might benefit from knowing about this quarterly sit that we do, which is co-sponsored with the Jewish Addiction Awareness Network, please spread the word. And I want to wish each one of you a sweet, healthy year. It's wonderful to look forward to spending it with you, journeying through the Jewish year, through the rhythms and ebbs and flows of the Jewish year. And may you be blessed to hear that called the Mama Darka, and for us to enjoy being part of this great work.